Thank you for this invitation. Thank you, Dr. Hisham, for inviting me to talk about Canadian experience. I wish we could have done it personally and have had chance to have more interaction, but I hope to have a little bit of interaction at the end too. First of all, I'm here to present on behalf of 31 Canadian NICU, so I need to recognize them and make sure that I acknowledge them sincerely. And I'll do it again at the end of the talk as well. So what are my objectives? I would like to tell you about a network and a database and its role in quality improvement. I'll tell you about national experience, some facilitators and barriers in doing quality improvement work, and what is future. Many of you might know Canadian Neonatal Network was established in 1995 by Professor Shoo Lee. And at that time, there were 16 neonatal intensive care units across Canada who participated. Today, we have grown to 31, in fact, would be 32 from 2022, and neonatal intensive care units across Canada. And that's all 32 neonatal intensive care units across Canada are participating in Canadian Neonatal Network and doing quality work. You might wonder, are we all same? We are not. We have units which has less than 100 babies admitted, and we have units which is more than 1,000 babies admitted to that unit. So we are different. We have different composition of inborn babies, outborn babies, and readmitted babies. However, we all come under one health scheme or health system across Canada. So as a network, what are the activities we do? Our core and central activity is benchmarking and trend evaluation. With that, we receive data from all neonatal intensive care units across Canada, look at the data and compare us, as well as look at the trend. We also do research with it because it's a rich source of data from which we need to learn. We do health service evaluation, meaning thereby where the baby should be and is the baby at the right place at the right time. We do a lot of international collaboration, training and mentor people with this vast amount of data. But what I will be talking today would be about quality improvement and how networks can improve quality. We basically had three visions in our mind. How can we build the social capital? How can we encourage and foster everyone's collective values? And how can we design a system that evolves over time? So what we did, start with the data. Data is easy in a way to collect individually, but how can we collect collectively and convert it into information? We shouldn't be stopping at the information. We should be developing that community collaboration, learn from data and get wiser. And my hope is to tell you the journey of how we did that to reach towards wisdom. We are not completely wise yet. And the one facet that I will tell about network today would be quality improvement. We adopted a principle called Biquiu, which is evidence-based practice for improving quality. And our basic principles under this program were to promote dialogue by creating teams at local institutes, by share data and evaluate each other's data, by share practices that we incorporate, and share intervention and learn from each other's results. We are in this journey from 2002. Currently running the program called the fourth version of it or fifth version of it. And I will show the outcomes at each steps that we have garnered or learned. But the conceptual model of Biquiu is that input. You have to have data as well as you have to have knowledge from the literature, which is based on the reviews. You look at your own data, you look at what is out in the literature, what kind of strength of evidence is there. Process, analyze, and plan. Now, analysis and plan Analysis occurs at the central coordinating center, but the plan as to what to do occurs at the individual unit. We can't force each unit to say, oh, now everybody needs to wash hands. No, we let them look at the data and decide what is the problem that is bothering them the most in their unit. We continually fed them the output, which is the data. They implemented process and quality improvement cycles looking at the data and audited themselves and come back to the data and review again and continue this cycle over time and time again. So let me walk you through the journey. The first part was 2002 to 2005. At that time, quality improvement was just in very, not even infancy. So, and randomized control trial were the panacea of neonatal care. So we first did the randomized control trial in a cluster fashion. We asked 12, as I mentioned, we had 17 NICU at that time, 12 decided to participate. We divided them into group A, which we asked them to target infection. And group B, 6 units, we asked them to target BPD. The 5 NICU which declined to participate, we just said, well, you continue what you're doing and we will use you as a control. So as you can see, over the 3 years, we recruited 3,000 babies in each group. What we found, the infection group, the infection went down by 34%. As we know, infection and BPD are going to go together. BPD in that group also went down by 44%. Whereas in the BPD group, there was not much change in infection, but the BPD went down by 15%. Most importantly, the control group, nothing happened. So this was the first documented results that we had, probably in a large setting, that quality improvement is effective in reducing infection and BPD. If you target intervention at one outcome, you may have an important results in other outcome. And this may be more effective and less costly than trying to study one intervention at a time, where we would be checking the randomized control trial. So this was the first proof that our approach is scientific. What happened? We were elated. We were very jubilant. And we basically said, well, this is fantastic. Now country is in the right course. We don't need to do anything. Let people do what we need to do. They need to do. What we did in that process in the first set was the units which were participating, we had them together. We taught them how to do quality improvement. And then asked them how to review and how to identify a problem that they want to tackle. So those 12 units were ingrained in learning quality improvement. They went back to their unit. They taught others how to do quality improvement. So as soon as these results came out, we said, well, that's fine. Now you continue what you're doing. We are not going to be your backbone. And we wanted to see what happens. Is it sustained? Lo and behold, at the same time, the units which were not participating also came back and say, oh, we want to be part of the Biquiu as well. But see what happened. In the post-Biquiu period, the units which had immersive engagement and learning of how to do quality improvement continued to improve in the blue line. Whereas the unit which just kept the bundles of the items that people implemented in their unit, there was not much change. Nothing practically happened in those units. So what we learned from this is that the process of disseminating and reinforcement requires complete engagement. Just telling units what we did without complete process may not be effective. A comprehensive initiative is required to implement the Biquiu process. So we learned that it needs engagement. With that, in 2008, we had to engage all NICUs. We targeted some high-risk baby, which is less than 29 weeks. We targeted more morbidities and mortality. And we also planned to measure neurodevelopmental outcome over a 5-year period. because now it was a time that we could not do a randomized control trial. Every unit was begging to be part of the Biquiu program. And what we found over the next 5 years, that we reduced the composite adverse outcome of mortality or any major morbidity in Canadian units by 37%. The odds ratio of composite outcome over the next, compared to baseline, which is 2008 to 2012, would reduce by 0.63 with a significantly narrow confidence limit. We learned also that the majority of improvement occurred in babies who were 26 to 28 weeks. We still have a lot to do for 22 to 26 weeks babies. So we concluded that it is effective at reducing multiple outcomes. If you target one, again, we had improvement in other outcomes, and this is generalizable. And you have to understand the background behind this, that we did not tell unit what to do. Units decided themselves what outcome and what intervention they want to implement. But at least we showed that this is a generalizable phenomena. If you engage yourself in a quality improvement, you will continue to improve. So at that stage, we did not want to leave it alone, because we learned from the previous that if you leave it alone, the things will fall back. So building on the success and to sustain the QI effort, to develop true sense of collaborative engagement, we continued with the next 5-year program. And lo and behold, we continued to see improvement. As you could see here, the composite outcome continued to go down, meaning thereby adverse outcome of mortality and morbidity continued to go down by another 28% in the next 4 years. Even after adjustment, it was 7%. We also learned that the majority of improvement occur in the outcome of necrotizing enterocolitis, bronchopulmonary dysplasia, and some improvement in infection. However, we identified that for every 60 to 70 babies that we treated of a 26 to 28 weeks in 2017, it led to 2 less deaths, 3 less NEC, 4 less infection, for an overall of 7 to 8 less cases going home without any major morbidity. And more importantly, we showed that this is a sustainable program. So just summarizing the all 3 as well as what we're doing now 4th. In first one, we proved it is scientific. In the first project, we learned that what works and what does not. And the second iteration, we showed it is generalizable. And the third one, we showed it is sustainable. And currently we are basically engaged in all the good things that we learned, but at the same time do some comparative effectiveness studies, as well as the studies to maintain consistency. So I hope to convince you that we have engaged, not just left at the data and starting to get wiser and wiser. And this is very important. I mean, networking is important. You could have imagined in 2002, we had meetings where units will sit, but nobody will talk who they are and what are their problems. By 2012, the units will come and say, that's me, the ROP, the worst ROP that you see in the network is me, and I need help. How can I learn? Who do I go to? And who do I learn from? And created a culture where the unit administrators will come to these meetings and say, because the units were going to them and say, well, no, EPIC says you have to do this way. And they say, what is EPIC? Let me go and learn. And that culture was developed in each of the hospital where administrators were knowing this is a quality improvement project, this is national project, and we need to listen to this project. However, one would say, well, you compare A versus B and slowly showing improvement. What about longitudinally, what you have done over the time? Because quality improvement is not to compare pre versus post. It's to look at the trend. And this is a trend. This is the survival without major morbidity on the y-axis in percentages. And on the x-axis is the years since we started. And as you can see, for each gestational age group, this is 23 to 25 weeks, 26 to 28, 29 to 30, and 31 to 32. There is a constant and steady improvement that has occurred in the positive outcomes of the babies over time. Plotting as a quality improvement charts, you could see that we have identified spatial cause variation at each individual gestational age group. Overall, for each outcome, mortality we have reduced them by 20 to 40% from 2003 to 2017. But the real achievement is this. What you're seeing here is individual units. On the horizontal axis is the expected number of babies with mortality or major morbidities based on the unit baby's characteristic. The larger the unit on the right side, smaller the unit on the left side. The purple lines are the 95% confidence limit. And what you're seeing is that all of the units are falling within that 95% confidence limit, meaning thereby learning from each other, we have achieved a sense of commonality, that it doesn't matter where you're born and where you're admitted, the outcome would be similar. There are variations, but within 95% confidence limit. So this has been extended. We have basically now gone to the other side of the umbilical cord. Now the obstetricians, when hear about this, they learned that, okay, well, we need to be part of this because this is the baby that we are giving them. So perinatologists across Canada has also joined, and they are undertaking several quality improvement projects with regards to deferred cord clamping, judicious use of antenatal steroid, and judicious use of antibiotics. And I can share those results at another time. So now what worked? I think what worked in our system was that it was initiated and run based on local context. At centrally, we just provided them training, support, continuous performance measurement, and data sharing. There was a dedicated team for implementation at each site, which trained other people as well as developed intervention. And then they came every year to tell us what they did and how they did. So the other units which are contemplating of thinking doing it, they just basically got the whole thing done for them on a platter. And that collaborative spirit is going on still to date. Just 2 weeks ago, we had our annual meeting and we learned 32 different quality improvement projects going on in these 32 different units with a shared goal of improving outcomes. It wasn't easy. I mean, we did face challenges. To keep the country together for 15 years requires cohesiveness and inclusivity. To keep their interest and enthusiasm going, you need to come up with a newer and newer mechanism and have leadership succession and support from either local as well as the federal sources. There were also other challenges such as privacy, confidentiality, ethics board. But the most important challenge we face is resistance to change. Each of us are tuned to do things the way we do and do not want to change, do not want to alter. And I think that mentality, when they come to the meeting, they listen to us, has been changed now. And everybody comes to work with an idea of doing better. So neonatal care has evolved. When we started with ventilation and CPAP in 70s, we had a new molecule steroid in 80s, surfactant in 90s, nitric oxide and ECMO in 2000. There's nothing new that has come from 2000. What has happened? We have become gentler. We are avoiding harmful interventions that we used to do and integrating family. And in 20s, what we learned was let's do what we do better and let's do what we do consistently. So randomized controlled trials have taught us all those things. And I think the quality improvement in the last 2 decades has taken over. And what has happened, neonatal intensive care has changed. And the only constant that has been in the intensive care is change. We're dealing with more and more immature babies, but we're producing better and better outcomes. That, I would like to acknowledge a lot of people, the investigators, committee, our family foundation, which is central to our work. Now, family foundation is guiding in each unit what should be the change that should happen. These are the families who had their babies and then coming and telling us what to do. The data abstractors, the steering committee, individual hospitals and foundation, as well as my research center in Toronto at Mount Sinai Hospital. We do workshop, we train people. The workshops have taken on. This concept of Biquiu has been gone now to multiple countries, and they have been forming their own cycles and mechanisms, including China, Sweden, South American countries. They are all learning about it and forming the committee. In Australia, there is a whole movement similar to us starting 3 years ago and have been engaged in this process. These are the people who produce this data and help me to produce results that I'm sharing with you. So I need to acknowledge them to make sure. And also the Canadian Neonatal Network. And I'll be happy to take any questions.